there's one thing this pandemic situation is showing us, it's that we're all connected. And on some level, we're all suffering. But we're also ready to fight our way through. In this series, I'm speaking to people I call friends, people I respect, people I want to see do well. Because in the end, we all have to carry on. And it's better if we carry on together. Thank you, Kim, for joining me today. Just for the sake of the audience, where are we connecting with you from?
Well, right now I am in Rome, Italy, but I'm from New Hampshire, but I've been living here in Rome for 6 years now. Not the first time I've lived in Italy, so third time and 8 cumulative years of living here. I can explain a little bit of my connection to both.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. So my original connection to Italy is that my mom's mom was born here. So when I was a child, spent a lot of time with my nonna and always studied languages all through my academic life. And so in college, I had studied Italian and lived here for the first time when I was 19 and 20. And so Italy and Italian and food has always been really important to me. So when I was in the Seacoast, I grew up actually in Nottingham, but Portsmouth I would consider home because my mom had still has a store. It's just no longer in Portsmouth. Her store, the Mustard Seed, started in our barn in Nottingham and then went to Portsmouth and then came back to Nottingham. So I skipped a lot of school and spent a lot of time in Portsmouth when I was a little kid. So I came back about 6 years ago to do a master's degree in food studies, Slow Foods University, so a master's degree in gastronomy. And so I've been here since 2014.
And what are you doing for work day to day? What's keeping you there right now?
Well, that question has a lot of answers. I had stayed originally, so the master's degree I did was a 1-year program. And my intention was always to stay here, but as with everything with the bureaucracy and the stay permits and things. So I stayed on and I worked first in a study abroad program with undergraduate students that were here to study food. I've always joked that they were more studying the wine part. So that was just about a year worth of work. And then now I organize food tours. So if you were to come to Rome, I would design an itinerary where you're meeting and seeing the city through its food. Unfortunately, you can guess the next thing I'm going to say is that obviously there's no tourists. So I'm not working at the moment in that sense, but there are certainly things that are evolving I've always been a translator as well, so doing some translation there too. But right now in Italy, I watch everything that's going on at home in Portsmouth. A lot of my best friends from home are chefs and involved in food, so I'm following everything that's happening there with you. Here in Italy, it's a lot stricter. So first of all, culturally, they don't really have the culture of delivery the way that we do. They would look at our delivery pizza and be like, why would you eat that cold? They don't have this culture of to go. So what's happening is the current rules, you can deliver, but they're just not equipped the same way. So I've been ordering beer, actually, getting beer delivered, craft beer here. But on May 4th, we're going to the next phase of things. And I can kind of explain some of the things that, in comparison to what you're experiencing versus what we're experiencing being in a hotspot and some of the rules I have to adhere to. I can jump into that.
Sure. Yeah. Let us know.
So basically, the last time I've been out of my apartment, was March 8th. So I am allowed to go to the grocery store, the pharmacy, or if I had an essential job. But in order to leave the house itself, I have to fill out an auto-certified affidavit for the police, basically justifying my movements. So it was, as everyone, I don't know how I read a little bit about how the U.S. press reports what's going on in Italy. Italy is very regional, so very much like you have states or we have states, they have province. And so the province of Lombardia was the one originally that was the hotspot. So it had been locked down. What happened is some of the rules of this decree had leaked and all these people got on trains and went south. So then the Premier Conte decided to shut the whole country down. So that happened on March 9th. And so the next phase is coming May 4th. But in this current phase, for example, can you imagine, I just looked at every night at 6 p.m., the numbers come out, they update us on the situation. Right now, it's about 28,000 deaths as of last night. There's been no funerals allowed. Not even, you're not allowed to even have a funeral. So that's changing on May 4th. Right now, you're not supposed to exercise outside. If you go further than 200 meters, you could potentially have a €3,000 fine or jail. So when I see all of these lovely, like, driveway and front lawn parties that you guys do, and I don't want to minimize anyone's personal experience with this moment, but it's like endearing to me because, you know, first of all, that they're beautiful events, but then also it's like, wow, I mean, I can't even go further than my little chain grocery store or I could be arrested.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
Such a drastic difference. I mean, I take for granted being able to just go out in the backyard. I have friends that, for instance, in Hoboken, New Jersey, live in a high-rise, and just getting out of the building is such a huge ordeal because they are not allowed to have more than one household in the elevator, and everything's shut down in the building. And I feel incredibly lucky that I can still get outside. I can still walk downtown. Granted, I've been taking my walks early in the morning because I just haven't been sleeping. But still, yeah, that whole extreme that you've had to deal with. Just, you haven't been out since when? March 8th, out of your apartment?
But when I say I've been out, like, what I mean is maybe 6 or 7 times to the grocery store I can go to. So say I wanted to go to a different grocery store. Technically, I'm not supposed to go beyond a certain distance if I have one just there, right? So it would be like if they told you, you can't go to the grocery store in Newington, you have to stay at the one in Portsmouth. Like, I'm not allowed to go certain distances away. Do people break rules? People break rules. You know, I sit on my balcony. I've been joking that I have a little balcony that, like, you know, people, all these images of people singing and things. I'm screaming at people.
Yeah.
Get inside.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot of little kids in my building too. So I don't even know what they're doing. I mean, they're the lower floor. They have a little outside space, but it's a different experience, obviously, with how you're living it in the space you're living it in. So.
Oh, I can't even imagine the kids, because I mean, it's tough enough for us. I have a 5 and a 7-year-olds. I didn't fully.
I follow what Verena eats. I see what she eats. Verena, if I didn't say her name.
Well, we will have to make sure she gets out on a food tour with you. That would be amazing because she loves the Mediterranean diet. She loves olives and artichokes and pickles. Yeah.
It's artichoke season right now. Technically, you're coming toward the end, but yeah, it's really odd. I mean, think about, I'm here in a culture where the first thing you do when you meet someone is kiss them. So, like, I'm really thinking about this, how all of these long-term things are going to be like. People aren't going to be able to kiss. Like, you know, one of the rules that's changing on May 4th, which is also different for you. I can't see friends, right? I'm not allowed to. They're changing the rule on May 4th that you're allowed to see what in Italian they call congiunti, which is very open for interpretation because it means, like, those that are close to you, technically your family, but you're not supposed to sit and eat. So you can go to mama's house and you can see her with a mask, but you're not supposed to sit down and have pasta with her, right? So technically I'm not supposed to go out of the house because I don't have, like, active family here. And the cousins I do have, you know, live in another region. So I'm not even allowed to go between regions. So it's like, you know, if you were in New Hampshire, you wouldn't be allowed to Maine. That's basically what we're saying. So what that's going to look like as far as tourism is just, I mean, I can't even imagine. There's a lot of rumors going around that, like, you know, the EU maybe collectively will open, but that, you know, maybe we're not, just 2020 might be a total wash. Like, there might not, even if you can travel, will people want to? You know, like, I was supposed to be home actually for a visit in March. And I had my ticket to leave March 5th. All flights were a go. And I made the very hard decision to cancel because, you know, my sister-in-law called me and said, she's a teacher in the Seacoast area, and said, I spoke to my superintendent and they said, if I see you, that I have to go into, not me, her. This was, like, obviously 2 months ago. She would have to go into isolation if I saw my nephews. So I go that distance, and even if I'm fine, who wants to be around me? So at that point, all of the cases that were being reported in the Boston area, a lot of them had ties to Italy. So I had I had to eat the fees, or everything. I didn't get reimbursement, but I made the decision that I didn't want to put my loved ones in the position where, even if I were fine, what if somebody got sick? Would it be my fault? Would they think it was my fault? So
yeah. Now, tell me what you're seeing in terms of the impact on businesses. I mean, you described a little bit about what that there's not this delivery culture. For one, I haven't really participated in that. I mean, I will make a trip out to the grocery store. I'll wear a mask, but I'm curious, with your understanding, especially of Portsmouth as a tourist destination, and drawing some comparisons with what you are seeing there on the ground.
Well, I wish I could show you an illustration of what some people are anticipating. So everything's staggered. And so in Italy, there's a Presidente del Consiglio, which is like a prime minister, and then there's a president. And so there's two separate, I'd have to look at all their different responsibilities. But the one that speaks is the Premier Conti. And so he has said, okay, we're May 4th, we're going into this phase 2, but if any point there's more spikes, it could change again. So one of the changes is on May 18th, some of the cultural sites will start to open. And then the anticipation is that June 1st, the hairdressers and the restaurants will open. Now, somebody did this rendering of what the beaches and what the restaurants could look like. And let's just say it involves a lot of plexiglass. So the rule before everything ended was that restaurants were open up until May 8th is the last time I went out for a beer.
March 8th?
March 8th.
Yeah.
And so at that point, they had to keep the tables a distance of 1 meter. So about 3 feet away. And then it just, so now the renderings are, I'd go out to eat with you, okay? There would be plexiglass between us. There would be plexiglass around us. What would this mean for the server? What would this mean for the kitchen? And the joke, the only thing that was funny about it is somebody had written a joke with the thing that would suck about phase 2 is if the wine were on the wrong side of the plexiglass, right? So you've got the wine, I don't. So I don't know what it's going to mean internally for Italians as far as restaurant culture is huge. And the whole point of it is to be up like this against people. So, I just read an article before, maybe an hour ago, about how they're anticipating up to a third of restaurants will just close. And now I've been following at home some of the businesses that have just announced that they just can't open. Here, I don't know. The economic part, I would say that much like home, the tourism sector and the restaurant sector here feel kind of ignored. They haven't been talked about the same way that maybe others have. I'm not an Italian citizen, but I have a work permit and I have permanent residence, much like a green card. I'm eligible for unemployment as a non-American, as a non-citizen. So I have that, right? And to take care of me for now, and I have access to healthcare. So maybe some of the same things that I see people from home worried about, most of my friends here are guides. When's the next time they're going to have to change completely what they do? I saw for the first time that there's a food tour company that are doing virtual tours. And okay, that's great, but at a certain point, So as far as Portsmouth goes, I don't know. We have more space. That's one advantage. You're not going to little holes in the wall the way you are here that have been owned for 3 or 4 generations of people. I don't know, because I haven't been out of the house. I can only rely on what I can read. So
something that I have been seeing talked about recently, first news I heard was Manchester discussing closing down Elm Street and opening up the outdoors to outdoor seating. And now I'm seeing that discussed here in Portsmouth about shutting down some streets, expanding outdoor seating, and
you think there are crazy rules about all the sidewalk stuff.
Right, yeah. And bringing it out into the street itself, which, still, I can drive through town, I can ride my bicycle through town, and it is a stark contrast to what you might expect because the parking spots are bare, streets are empty, and I am concerned about the businesses that really truly depend on the tourist traffic, and how on earth are they going to survive even after things start to be lifted, which is being discussed right now. But how do you account for that drastic drop in business?
I don't think they're going to be able to recover here. I mean, you can't imagine what the tourism presence here is in Rome. It doesn't matter what day it is. It doesn't matter what month it is, what the weather is. Like, Rome is full normally. So, I mean, I've looked at kind of like webcams and things, and to see that like some of the piazzas that normally would be, full, that grass is growing, through the cobblestones because there's no upkeep and nobody walking on them. My downstairs neighbor is a taxi driver. Another one is a chauffeur. I mean, who are they taking? They can't take anyone around. I mean, yeah, there's like no flight. Well, there still are physical flights. Like, for example, if I decided tomorrow that I wanted to go back to the U.S., Alitalia is running a daily flight from Rome to New York. But if I come back here, now they're not letting tourists, you're not allowed to come in unless you're a resident here. So technically I would be allowed back in. But the rules are, say I flew in, say I went home, visited my family, came back here, I'd be in quarantine here as well because I'm not allowed to take public transport. I have to register with the health authority. So, I feel like things are pretty, like, uniform in the approach of, like, what's expected. And, if I showed you the form that I have to carry with me for the police just to go by, like, but we don't have the hoarding either. So I go to the grocery store. The only joke I was making was that the only thing that's hoarded here is mozzarella. Like, we have bidets. We don't need the toilet paper. So it's, but yeah, I have to carry this form for the police just to go and buy silly things, So I don't know. It really was disheartening for me, for example, to see some of the protests at home. I mean, I don't know. It's such a politically charged thing. I've had to kind of step away from some of my social media time because of it. And as I've shared with you, my brother being a first responder, I, worry about him probably the most.
What are you hearing from him?
So, initially when this first started happening, initially for me with him, I'd say the end of March, early April, he was telling me how some of the fire departments had to ask for donations from the public of, for example, like disinfectant wipes because the public had bought them all. He's told me that he's in Dover, and he's told me that he feels good. He feels like everybody's prepared, but he primarily deals with Wentworth Douglas. He said, everything for him feels very well organized, and, they're definitely transporting positive patients. But his health is good, but it's just psychologically, I'm sure it's, he comes home, he's got the kids at home. My sister-in-law's a teacher, just all the crazy hours, so I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you what, I hear ambulances all day here, and it's Lazio, which is the region that Rome is in, it's actually not so bad in the sense of, like, if you were to look at something like Lombardia, and I mean, obviously Italy has a lot of elderly, and that there's a lot of multi-generational living and close quarters and all these things. But yeah, it's really odd. It's just...
And what about your mom and the mustard seed? Has she adapted her operations as well?
Yes. So she is open. Her store now is in Nottingham, and it's in so my childhood home, and next door is a barn. And the barn, the retail space is closed in the sense that the public can't walk in. She had it open for a while, but she's installed a service window. And you can call, she ships, and she has all kinds of like natural soaps and disinfectants and just bulk teas, bulk food, things like that. The community has been really great to her. When I was a little kid, some of her ideas were definitely like, I'd say a little progressive for her. Like the mom for the slumber parties I had thought she was a witch, but now she's got like the whole town drinking her green smoothies and stuff. So, so she like can ship out. I've tried to share it with people because she does have a lot of like, natural products and things. So, she doesn't rely obviously on foot traffic the way that she did when she was in Portsmouth, and ultimately the high rent and that factor were the reason she left Portsmouth. And it's, it's our barn. So she basically, I have a stepfather who unfortunately he's very high risk. suffered a pretty bad stroke several years ago. And so just for her quality of life to be close to the business and to be close to him, walkie-talkie. So I mean, she's adapted in that sense, and a lot of people have sought her out for, access to those products, immune enhancing, elderberry, all kinds of things. So
yeah. Well, Kim, I'd love to check in with you again and hear how things are advancing as things start to open up there and what you continue to see on the ground there in Italy. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. I really appreciate it. This has been really great, and I truly wish you the very best through the next several weeks, months. Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to say, is that hearing from people from home that are thinking about me, even if it's just a little message here and there, has been something that I've really appreciated. I think if anything, when you're away from a place, you obviously realize how much you miss it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing from you again soon.
Okay. Thanks, Dan. Bye.